Your Help presents Stress-Free Living with Ray Somich and Mr. Stress-Free, Ratanjit S. Sondhe. This audio program is an unscripted and unrehearsed conversation between Ray and Ratanjit. It is shared with you in hope of adding value to your life. We encourage you to listen to this program in its entirety to receive the full impact of its message. Sit back, relax, open your heart, mind, and soul to this edition of Stress-Free Living.
This is Stress-Free Living. I'm Ray Somich. Welcome to our program today. And I'd like to introduce everybody to my longtime co-host and dear friend, Ratanjit Sondhe. Ratanjit, how are you this fine day?
Wonderful, Ray. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you. Always better when we have this opportunity to get together as we do pretty much on a weekly basis. And we do this so that people can listen on the radio on WINT here in the Cleveland area, AM and FM, or on wintradio.com anywhere around the world. And if you missed the show live and you want to catch us on YouTube, you can do that on our Stress-Free Living radio channel, where you can not only listen, but you can also watch if you'd like to see the incredibly passionate and beautiful face from Ratanjit, and you also get to see mine as well, which isn't as passionate or as beautiful, but that's okay. And you can also see our other wonderful people that gather with us, because we have a Zoom audience on a regular basis. We're delighted that they join us that way, and we invite you to be part of that as well. We can be happy to send you our Zoom link so that you can join in the conversation, and we will interact with you during the breaks and after the show is over. Ratanjit, I really wanted to continue the topic from last week. You came up with a really clever title, Are We Brainful and Mindless? And even though we talked for a full program about that, I just felt that we were just scratching the surface. There was still so much more to say. And I think the reason I feel that way is that as human beings, I really think that we almost empower our brain and or our mind, depending on which term I'm going to use for a second, to really run our life. We really kind of think that's the king of our body, of our existence. And we trust our brain to logically think through our options, to be able to reason and use what education we know and what resources we have available and what experiences we can draw from. And we really then say, okay, I've thought this thing through. I've really, based on all of these factors, I'm going to make this decision. I'm going to go forward. And with that, I mean, that really makes decisions. We make decisions that dictate our lives. I mean, who we're going to marry and what job we're going to take and what career we're going to have and where we're going to live. And all of these things that I think we use our brain to determine. And so it's a little bit staggering, shocking, disconcerting to actually say, boy, are we making these decisions with our brain or with our mind? Because a lot of us kind of think it was the same thing. And last week, you kind of shared that they're not the same thing. And so to me, this is maybe one of the most important conversations we've had to understand the distinction. And if we're going to trust these decisions that we make, should we make them in our brain or should we make them in our mind?
See, mind is basically energy, and it generates energy. How? Through thinking, feeling, and choosing. First we think, then we develop feeling through the thought process, and then we make a decision. And our brain stores that command from our mind. So, and that if our thought processes are stress-filled, they are negative, we are worried, and that will generate, and when it comes to the brain, it will generate hormones which are going to responsive to that thought. They are going to be harmful uh, hormones which are produced by the body when we are worried or when we are strained, when we are under fear, under those circumstances. So if our thought processes are positive, then it creates different kind of chemicals in the body. So our health of human body basically depends on our thought process. Of course, it depends on other environment, physical environments, but more than anything else, it depends on our thought process, how we think. And the thinking is done by brain. Now, about thinking is done by our mind. And brain, basically, we keep on interusing these terms, mind and brain. So mind is energy. Mind is where the thought process resides.
So let's make that distinction again. And I know I may do the same thing. Sometimes we do interchange those terms, but technically, for the purpose of this program, we are saying that the brain is the physical part of the body where the functions happen, where the storage is kept. So that's that's kind of like the heart that beats the blood that goes into our body. It has a physical action that it takes, but the processing, the influence of all these factors, you're saying is basically energy that's converging together. And that's done in the mind. Am I stating that properly?
Yeah. It's when we compare things, they are not exact comparison. We lose something, but in spite of that, it is the way to compare mind and brain is your physical computer, the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And the mind is the software, or when you are through the software, you are generating some letter or some art or something which is now stored in the memory of the computer. So our brain has protein molecules which rearrange themselves to capture that memory, and then it is there. So you can recall it, you can do whatever you want with this, but the mind basically generates new thoughts, constantly thinking.
Now see, what I really like about that analogy with software and computer is that as amazing as software can be, as powerful as it has the capabilities of being, it is dead unless somebody is using the software. Okay, yeah. Unless you said writing a letter or creating art or whatever might be, that software is used for a million things. But unless somebody is activating the software, it has no value.
Right.
So the same thing, to me in this discussion with the mind, unless we put the human element into the mind, unless we add to it our passion and our attitude, our thoughts, our emotions, unless we put those elements into the software, it's as good as dead. I mean, we could have 150 IQ and be a genius, but if we're not using the software and putting the other elements into it to use it, it's worthless. It's brain dead. Yeah. That's how I think. Am I wrong in that?
Yeah. You see, what you're saying is that our physical needs, who I love, I want to do something for my loved one, it generates a thought.
Mm-hmm.
The brain captures that thought. Mind generates that thought. So if mind is attached to the need of the physical body, then mind is basically full of thought which are controlled by our human body needs. So now, this is why we are always worried. Our thoughts are full of worries. Our thoughts are full of fear. Our thoughts wants to gather enough money, full of greed. Thoughts is always want to play one up game. I'm part in the ego. So that is where our thought process are generated. And as a consequence of those thought process, our human body is attached to the mind and directing all the thoughts in the mind. So the software which we are using is all for the needs of the human body.
Mm-hmm.
And all these needs are always looking for, I need more money. How can this person be used, or is this person good or bad? So all these thoughts are generated through that avenue. And as a consequence, most of these thoughts are not positive thoughts. They are positive when we are thinking about our loved ones, when we are thinking about making a difference to somebody, when we are in the empathy mode, when we are feeling somebody's pain, when we want to do something for them, then they become a little more creative. So these thoughts has unlimited potential of creativity, and they can give us answers, and they can think about. Now, is when we are attached to the basic human body needs, we are not utilizing our mind to its fullest capacity. They are limited to fulfilling our needs and wants.
Well, we've talked in the past, maybe even in the last show, about how much of our body is automated, and it's the auto habits that happen within us, so that we don't have to think about being able to breathe. We don't have to think about some of the basics of life that are automatic. Part of that automation, which is a gift, is the fact that the body is always looking for its own protection and its own survival. And so a lot of what you just talked about are things that happen without us even having to be aware of them. They're making sure that we're safe. They're making sure that our body is safe, that people aren't hurting us, that we're not going places we shouldn't go, or talking with people we shouldn't meet. We kind of have our extra senses in place on autopilot. And I think, that's beautiful. It really is. It's a gift that we have that. But if that's where we end, if that's all we do is just use those automatic thoughts which basically are all about us. They're all about protecting us and making our life better. And that's where you get into greed and ego and everything else, so that we don't feel badly about ourselves. We use our ego so we feel better about ourselves. We have greed so that we make sure that we have everything that we want. I think too many of us just fall back on those autopilot thoughts, and we don't explore their creativity that we were meant to go with.
Yes. See, the thinking which we call thinking, Ray, under the circumstances which you have described, is merely rearranging our old memories and our own need and all old gear and greed and fear and all that. That's what we do. We basically do not bring in any original thoughts. As a consequence, we are parked in the and the same thing goes when we get together with a friend. All we are talking about is the old memories, old times, old thing, because that's where your thinking is comfortable with. Very rarely we explore original thoughts, challenging thoughts. So challenge only comes, the, the, the full capacity of the mind, not full, but additional capacity of the mind is utilized only when we challenge the mind to think, come up with an answer. So the challenge only comes, see, when something happens to us, some accident happens, or somebody has used us, or something which we don't want happens to us. So we generally go immediately, because of our habit, in the blame game. And we want to go into the anger mode. We want to punish that person or whatever. So that is a waste of situation. If you want to utilize the capacity of mind under those circumstances, the first thing we need to do is accept that situation where and how it is given to us, and then figure out, how do I creatively get out of that? How do I creatively add value to that? How do I creatively make a difference to that situation? So that is when you utilize the capacity of this amazing mind.
You know, there's a term that's used about being open-minded.
Yes.
And I think, and this, I think, comes into play right now. When you say that we fall back on old ideas, we fall back on old experiences, and we don't want to explore creativity, I think that really is true about our whole life. I mean, and maybe as we get older, we even get worse with that, because we have gone through so many things, including some painful things. And so we develop a comfort zone with the things that we know we've had success with, or relative success with things that haven't hurt us, with things that haven't been too dangerous in emotions or in physical risk or whatever it is. And so as we get older, I think we get more and more less open-minded. And, you know, no, I don't want to go there. I don't want to try that. And because I've been there before and it's hurt, it's been painful, it's been stressful, it's been depressing, whatever it is. So what I'm hearing you say is that we're not living unless we are open-minded.
Yes.
We're not using our potential at all if we get stuck in this habit of only staying within the experiences we've already had.
See, there is a distinct difference between experience and creativity. So let me give an example.
Okay.
If you find a person, an entrepreneur, who has been successful at what he did or she did, now when they go onto a new business, which is totally different than what they did before, and if they totally rely on their experience, yes, some of that can help them, but most importantly, to chart a new path for the new idea, you need creativity, original creativity. That is why the odds of success for people who are successful in a business to succeed again are less than a person who is starting new.
Really? Did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow. Again, with what I just said, they fall back on what they've already known and done successfully, and they're not willing to try something else, right?
And that is why the society values experience more than creativity. And we keep on bringing the same old guys again and again and again. Look at our government. They don't bring any fresh blood. As a consequence, we are parked in the same place.
Yeah. even with marriages, I know once in a while you have a situation where somebody had a difficult marriage and then they've had a successful one. But very often, people that haven't done well the first time, they also have a tough time the second time, and even the third time or fourth time.
Absolutely.
Because this is based on what you said. They don't change. They can't change, right?
Yeah. See, you talked about the habit we talked about in our last program, that habit is a gift given to us by nature. If we do something repeatedly, there is a part of our brain called basal ganglia. And that brain basically stores that and repeats it so it memorizes it. So that makes us efficient. To make us efficient, that we don't utilize our creative power on the task which we want to do again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it becomes a curse. If you have not stayed on the creative mode and accepted challenge, creativity only comes from accepting challenge, Ray. When you don't accept challenge, that's why when these great artists, when they go on the stage to perform, say a great piano player going in the Carnegie Hall playing the concert, if the piano player, the greatest piano player on earth, doesn't have some feeling in his stomach before she performs the show would be mediocre. So until you challenge again yourself to bring in the creativity, you remain mediocre. So all these difficulties which are gifted to us, I call it gifted to us, are really challenging our creativity. So we stay alive.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here for a moment. When we come back, I want to, now that we kind of know what goes on in the brain and in the mind, I want to find out where the conscience, what effect that has on what we do with our brain. We love that word. We've talked about that word before, but is that something that also is relevant to the thoughts that are in our mind? And is that really where the decisions are best made, with the influence of the conscience or not, especially in the world that we live in today? This is Stress-Free Living. We'll be right back in just a moment. Okay, we are on a quick break, everybody. We're on a radio timeout. We got a couple of guests with us here today. If anybody would like to unmute yourself and ask a question that you want me to ask or make a comment, you're welcome to do that now in the next minute or so. Ratanjit, I did have somebody else that was trying to get in, Richard, and I didn't recognize Richard, and I don't know who you know that would be, but I didn't want to take a chance of letting somebody in when we were live on the air.
Yeah, Richard should be okay.
Richard's okay? I didn't know who Richard was, so I didn't let him in, unfortunately. If you hear from him, apologize for me. Ever since we got burned that one time, I've been a little hesitant.
Kim is there. Kim, how are you? Unmute yourself.
Okay, we're still on a break here.
Good morning. I'm well, and I am grateful to be here. Really appreciating the remarks this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. So everything is well with you and your son?
Everything is well. Everything is well.
My hero. Oh, gosh, I miss seeing him. What is he doing these days?
He is producing music, and he's working in the insurance industry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't let him get away from music. That's very creative food for his brain.
Yes, I love when you said that about, if you don't feel something in your stomach, it's going to be a mediocre performance. And,
yes,
I feel the same way in my business. I am in real estate sales, and I often feel, very nervous before I'm having a big meeting, but I understand this is now helping me. to
Yeah.
be more thoughtful and creative.
See, when we go conflict
Okay,
and
we're
into
we
a
gotta go.
so,
We are back on Stress Free Living, having a great conversation as we do during our breaks with our fabulous Zoom guests that come in with us on a regular basis. And we hope that you will join us in the future. If you would like to have that Zoom link, you can get it on our website or Facebook page, or also on our Stress Free Living Radio YouTube channel. Ratanjit, we were talking about being brainful and mindless. And I think we've talked about that enough where we kind of understand the difference, and we may fill our brain with all kinds of memories and experiences and we store all kinds of education. Good Lord, we know that some people now are going to school for 20 years of their life, getting educated. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but we do have plenty of knowledge and education that's in our brain. We're full with stuff, but what are we doing with that stuff that we have stored in our brain? How are we using it? And are we so dependent and reliant on all of that data that is stored in our brain that we stop our creative process to be open-minded to new things and new thoughts? So we've talked this through pretty well. I want to know what the conscience has to do with this whole thing.
it's a beautiful question. Now, you mentioned something about education.
Yeah.
Education gives you experience. The purpose of education is to transform us into a lifelong student. If education does not do that, it has failed us completely. So when we consider ourselves educated, we are deceiving ourselves, because education is constant unveiling of the truth, constant utilizing our power of mind. So if we become a storage of information and regurgitate that information over and over again to other people to impress or make our decisions, we will forever remain mediocre. So that is why education is a starting point, not a finishing point. I wanted to make that distinction.
Mm-hmm.
Now you talk about conscience.
Yes.
Now, there was a book everybody might have seen or at least heard of it called Secret. They discuss the law of attraction. Means that book says if you can visualize something, if you want a big house, you visualize, constantly think about it, that I have this house, I live in this, and this is how this bedroom looks like, how its yard looks like, and eventually this nature, forces of the nature will make it happen for you. So law of attraction is, that's what they say. Now, why doesn't it work for everyone? See, that is where the conscience comes into play. You had a question? You wanted to make a comment?
No, I was gonna try to answer that. I was gonna say I don't know. Because I loved that book. There's been movies on there and books, and unfortunately the author of that passed away recently. But it is so amazing that I have seen in real life people who used that law of attraction positively and accomplished wonderful things. And I know other people, including myself, who have tried to think positively and use that law of attraction to the fullest. And it has been less than I expected to get back. And other people have said, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So I'm real curious why you think you have the answer in terms of conscience. Why do you think that makes the difference?
So imagine, Ray, a corporate situation. There is a CEO and she has answered to the board of directors.
Okay.
Now, a CEO has a great idea to build this new plant, and this will be all automated and do this. And it has to have board's approval.
Right.
Board looks at it from the overall perspective of the goodness of the stockholders or the business or what it does to the universe or world. So they make a decision and turn it down. So that great idea of the CEO will not go anyplace. So our conscience is our board of directors, implanted in us by the divine power. So when the conscience gives an approval and validates an idea which is thought by your creative desires, then it will happen. All the forces will come together and it'll happen. So now the conscience is part in oneness. Means if the idea is not good for everyone, or the environment, or the universe, or everybody, or if it depletes somebody, if it minimizes somebody, then it will not approve.
But isn't the conscience based on our internal values? Isn't that based on what my parents taught me, what I saw my parents doing? I know it's not as much what I heard them say as what I saw them do. But if I was a baby and I saw my parents do certain things, my grandparents and my brothers and sisters and good teachers, religious leaders, anybody who had an impact on my life, didn't they help shape my values? All of these people. So my conscience, isn't that just a reflection of everything else that kind of made me who I am?
Right. This is a brilliant question. Most of us mistake our conscience of what you talked about.
Okay.
A lot of us don't have our conscience awakened. That's the problem. What we consider as our conscience is in a coma, is asleep, it's not awakened. It can only be awakened if, see, it's like when you go in the hospital, in a doctor needs to operate on you, and then there is anesthesia given to you, right? Under the anesthesia, you don't feel the pain and all that. So until anesthesia wears out completely, you are not aware.
Right.
So our anesthesia is what our five senses experience, what tastes good, what looks good, what feels good, and all that. We get so consumed in that we become unconscious. Our real us is not awakened. The real us is connected to that power, universal power, which is present in everyone. So we consider ourselves as a male or a female or a white or a black or an old or young, an American, an Asian, and so on and so forth. That's our definition of the human body, where it was born, how it is made, what it looks like. But you are, if you consider yourself to be a human body, then you are in the coma of the human body needs, dictated by your fear, greed, your ego. And you are not able to connect to the conscience, because conscience is installed by the universal force present in us, which gives us life. My life, which is me, the enlivening force present in me is real me. And this vehicle, human body with these five senses, is given to me to conduct my journey. So this human body is a CEO given to me to this conscience. But if conscience is the board of directors are on vacation, they are not available to this CEO. CEO is going to keep on doing what it wants to do because it has nobody else to report to. But until your conscience is awakened, and that gets awakened only when we realize who we truly are. When we realize we are the power which enlivens me, then my conscience is connected to the divine power present in everything. So that conscience will not allow you to do anything which is going to compromise any situation or harm any situation.
So I need to take a little moment and ask you to help me clarify this, because I get what you're saying totally, but I'm confused how it all lays out. And one of the things I like so much about these conversations is that you bring new definitions to words that I've used all my life and new clarifications of how I need to think about things. But if you would give this, if you would acknowledge this part, we make decisions usually that are based on what's best for me at the moment and my pleasure, my greed, my insecurities, all those kind of things. And when we use the term, what does your conscience say? What do you feel in your conscience to help guide you? With all respect for everything you've just said, I don't think we think about that oneness and about tying into the universe. I think we consider our conscience what our true value system is, what our parents would have told us. If our mother were alive, or if my mother were there, what would she tell you to do? And we think of conscience as being kind of like the guiding principles of what we should do righteously in that decision. So I absolutely see how taking that conscience to the higher level, the highest level, would be, what was I designed to do? What does the universe tell me to do in oneness? What is the best choice? But I don't know if I don't know how many people have evolved to that level of consciousness. I think we're barely struggling in our world today to get to the level that I'm talking about. Because as we've shared in other shows, we've got billions and billions of dollars that are telling us through the media, through politics, through our celebrities and everything else, that conscience doesn't matter at all. Even the type of conscience I'm talking about doesn't matter. Do what's good, do what feels good, do what's right for you. Life is short, just live it up. So do you acknowledge that maybe, I mean, again, not taking anything away from what you said, but there's a consciousness level, being a conscience that at least is better than being greedy. At least it's better to think about what my parents would have said. And then maybe once we get to that level of using conscience, we can go to that highest level. Does that make sense?
What you're talking about is a pseudo conscience and a real conscience.
Okay.
Now, pseudo conscience will give you temporary feeling of, so if you have thought about what your parents have said, what your priest have said, what your religion has said, and you say, okay, yeah, I should do this. I should, and then you feel proud of yourself after you have done lived that kind of.
Yeah. Okay,
so
you do.
All you are doing is playing your ego under that conscience. And when you have lived your real conscience, the feeling after living the real conscience is going to be ultimate gratefulness. You will not feel proud. You will not feel pride. I have done this. You are going to give the gratefulness to the power which incentivizes you to do the right things. So that is the main difference. You become humbler under the real conscience. The pseudo conscience, you say, I am a value person. Look at all our politicians. And that pseudo conscience you only live when you are on the stage, means when somebody's watching you. You don't live that conscience when nobody's watching you. And that is the difference.
That is a very powerful message to communicate that that what many of us, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but what many people that live by their conscience are thinking that's kind of the ultimate level of goodness, of being a value-oriented person. In reality, in many times, as you're saying, that just kind of endorses our ego and endorses, and then you get into that other element that you've talked about in the past, where now we have this balance and we said, well, gee, I did this good and I did this good and I did this good. And so now I can be bad. It's like I'm on a diet and I fasted Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So Thursday I can eat ice cream all day because I know that I was so good on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I do understand what you're saying. It just seems like that's a new level that is much more difficult to attain. Is it? I mean, is that, how do I get to that level of endorsing and living by my real conscience, not my pseudo conscience?
Well, see, it's not difficult to attain or easy to attain. The thing is that you have to first fully comprehend the reality of ourselves. Nobody has given us that reality. I am not the human body. I live in this human body. So once you are aware of that, then your mind begin to notice that when you are in the human body mode, you are full of fear, you're full of greed, you are full of ego. And then when you are thinking as, I am the power which enlivens me, and it is the same power which enlivens others. So I begin to see other person not as male, female, black, white, or old or young. I begin to see them as the power housing, the housing which keeps the same power which I have. And then my thought process, when it is parked in that mode, thinks differently. And again, let's use the power of habits. So once you think about those things on a constant basis, it slowly cultivates a new habit in you.
Ratanjit, on this, we have to take a quick break again. We'll be right back in just a moment. I have one more big question to ask you that I've been saving up. So I'm not even going to tease you with it. I'm just going to come back with it when we come back on the other side of this break. Ray Somich, Ratanjit Sondhe with you on this edition of Stress Free Living. We'll be right back. My gosh, I can't believe it's 9:48. We just, I looked and it was late. Kim, I didn't mean to cut you off. I really apologize. I heard the music. I knew we were coming back.
No worries.
Okay.
No worries.
What is your husband? Is he a musician? Does he perform?
It's my son.
Your son. Okay.
Yeah.
What does he play?
Ray is a musician also.
No, he doesn't play an instrument. He's a producer and he raps.
Oh, producer. Oh, really? Excellent.
I really have to use my conscious mind not to be terrified.
Where is he at?
Right now he's in Cleveland,
Okay.
but he lives in San Diego.
I see. Okay. Well,
So
San Diego is not, I mean, it's far, it's across the country, but it's, if you would have said LA, I would have been more concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so we
That's
have a new guest, Raju. Bhagwati Saab, can you unmute yourself and say something?
Hi, sir.
Oh my
Hello,
God,
hello.
this is not Raju.
It's
This is
Raju's
Sana.
daughter.
It's
No,
the
he was
daughter.
also listening. He was also listening along with me.
So you are
It's
in
always
India?
wonderful. I'm in India. I'm in Mumbai. My
wow.
mother just underwent a transplant, so I was here to serve her. So,
Oh, how is she
yeah,
doing?
and it's so wonderful to hear you, sir. That feeling of gratefulness which you spoke about. So, whenever I do anything for her, it's always this mode in which I remind myself it's an opportunity to serve. And that feeling of gratefulness that God has offered me this opportunity to serve someone who has created me. So,
So
thank you,
instead,
sir. Time and again, I remind myself of what you have taught us.
so instead
Thank
of
you.
serving your mother, serve the divine force in her.
We have to go. Thank you.
Yes. All right.
And we're back on Stress Free Living. Again, having great interaction with our wonderful guests, and we invite you to do that. Ratanjit, I saved a question here that I was thinking about all week. If we have better control over what's in our mind, what we process in our mind and using our brain, and now we understand better the conscience and where that falls into it, ideally, what should we be doing? And don't just say looking to add value, because that's so easy. No, it's not easy. It's hard to do, but it's such an easy answer. How should we be using the brain? How should we be, when we wake up in the morning, if we're going to be aware of the incredible creativity of this, what do you suggest we do? How do we play it out so that we can make the best use of the brain at any given moment, any given time?
See, if you remain in the human body mode and guide from that angle mind, the creative mind, all you are going to do is what is in it for me, what is good for me, what will make me more money, what will make me my muscles grow up, how do I look good, and how do I get a bigger home, how do I get the best car, how do I get the fame, how do I eventually, after getting all that, then you become power hungry, how do I become most powerful man in the world. So that is the route you are going to use the creativity if you remain in the human body mode. So once you realize that you are not the human body is gifted to you as an amazing tool to conduct your journey, and you are the power which resides within you. And then in that mode, when you begin to think, you don't think of just yourself. You begin to then, you see, just like if you are a person who is driving an ambulance, you are taking a sick people to the hospital and serving them. So then this ambulance, which is suddenly given to you, is very high powered and highly equipped and amazing. So instead of being proud of that uh, vehicle, you will serve the vehicle, make sure that it is properly functioning, properly clean, properly disinfected, and utilize that. But your purpose is not that vehicle. Purpose is to carry the sick people to the hospital. So similarly, when we realize that I am equipped with this amazing human body, which is capable of doing all these amazing things, but my purpose is to utilize this vehicle gifted to me to creatively, I'm going to use the word, add the highest value, So that requires deep thinking. How do I add the highest value? Then you have to understand where you are adding the highest value. So again, instead of being educated, you become a student again. You study and find out, how do I add the highest value? What will add the highest value? And once you are in that mode, all the creativity will flow through you. And you will be amazed, all these resources which you need to add the highest value suddenly start to become available to you. It is like if you want to start a business and you want to add the highest value to the society through a business, through a product or service which you offer to the society. If your product and service fulfills a very important need for the society, you will be amazed how financing falls into place, how team comes together, because everything automatically is gravitated towards you. That is what happens. So you are able to add the highest value. But adding the highest value is not an end product, Ray. If in my business, if I made a product which is adding the highest value today, does that product add the highest value tomorrow? So you need to upgrade that service or the product on a every moment basis. How can I make it better? We are living in the mindset of, I'll do my best. I'll do my best. Doing your best is the end game. I've done my best. I'm done. But if you think of doing your better, once you are in the mode of making your best better, that mode never has an end game. It is a journey. You are constantly making your best better.
It's very challenging because I don't think we use our mind or our brain anywhere near to the capacity that we can. I think we really settle in our life. And as we get older, I hate to admit, but I think we settle more and more for being locked into our comfort zone. And we're not thinking outside of the all of the experiences that we had and all of the emotions that we've already felt. And so it is challenging, Ratanjit, I think, for most of us to say, how do we add that highest value? How are we willing to engage the mind to try to think of best, okay? Because we are satisfied, kind of like the example of the conscience. I think we've been very satisfied. I've been very satisfied with saying, let my conscience be my guide, not thinking that the conscience that I've been talking about is my pseudo conscience and not the real one. And it's like, okay, I'm going to think about the best way to handle this, but I'm going to think about it based on all of my experiences and all of my history and all of my education, not being willing to explore, well, maybe I need to go beyond that. Maybe I need to think and be open-minded to better ways of doing it. And so it's a bit challenging, but I could see how it could be tremendously rewarding and even invigorating. I mean, maybe that's how, we've talked, God has blessed me in the world with having you for many years. You just keep on going and going and going, thank God. Maybe that is what's keeping you alive. Maybe that's what's keeping you energetic. Like you act like you're 30 because you have so much energy and passion yet. Is this invigorating? Do you think helps keep you going and thinking and living?
Absolutely. This is the pill which keeps you healthy. It is the pill which keeps you younger. It is the pill which keeps your mind and your brain younger. And until this challenge is there, until you are there to add the highest value, you don't have the blessing and the permit of the universal wisdom to allow you to stay healthy. If you have a worker who is not doing well, and you won't keep him, right?
Yeah, right. You're right.
So that is why when people who retire and say, I'm going to enjoy, I'm going to just travel, I'm going to do this and this and this, and their good health falls apart and they die quickly.
Ratanjit, on that note, we have to go quickly. I'm so sorry, but we're out of time. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on mindfulness and brainlessness and conscience and everything else that we've talked about here today. I have enjoyed it so much, and I know our listeners have too. And thank you to all of our wonderful listeners for being with us. Remember, folks, we're all playing the same game. We'll talk to you again real soon.